1865, Arizona Territory. The paint mare stumbled in the muddy creek bed, and Catherine Sinclair felt her world tilt sideways before she hit the ground hard. Cold spring water soaked through her burgundy riding dress as she landed waist-deep in the muck. The reins torn from her grip. Her horse bolted up the far bank and kept running. She struggled to stand, but the mud sucked at her boots like quicksand. Behind her, hoofbeats thundered closer. Panic clawed at her throat as she twisted to see her pursuer, expecting Beaumont's men. Instead, a lone rider emerged from the cottonwoods, his black stallion splashing through the creek with ease. The man reined in and sat there watching her struggle. And then, he started to laugh. A deep, genuine laugh that made his shoulders shake beneath his tan work shirt. Catherine's fear turned to fury in an instant. She was covered in mud, her hair plastered to her face, stuck in a creek bed with a saddlebag full of stolen gold, and men hunting her. And this stranger found it amusing. "You planning to help, or just sit there enjoying the show?" she snapped, shoving wet hair out of her eyes. He dismounted with fluid grace, still grinning as he approached. Up close, she could see he was maybe 33 or 34, with dark sandy blonde hair and blue-gray eyes that crinkled at the corners, tall and broad-shouldered, with the weathered look of someone who spent his life working under the desert sun. Light stubble covered his strong jaw, and there was something both amused and assessing in his gaze. "Well now, that depends," he drawled, stopping at the creek's edge. "You the same Catherine Sinclair whose ranch borders mine to the south? The one whose husband died 6 months back? What's it to you?" She tried again to pull her feet free, but only succeeded in sinking deeper. The cold water was up to her waist now, and her dress felt like it weighed 50 pounds. "Name's Wyatt Coleman. I own the Double C spread." He tilted his head, studying her with those keen eyes. "And I'm trying to figure out why my neighbor's riding hell-bent through my property like the devil himself is on her heels." Catherine's heart hammered. She couldn't tell him about the gold, about what she'd discovered hidden in Thomas's study, about Beaumont's gang that was surely closing in. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "My horse spooked. I lost control." The lie came easily, though his raised eyebrow suggested he didn't believe a word. "Uh-huh." Wyatt crossed his arms, making no move to help her. "That why you got a saddlebag worth more than most folks see in a year strapped to that paint? And why you're riding bareback without even a bridle?" Damn. He'd noticed too much. Catherine felt her face flush beneath the mud. "Are you going to help me out of this creek, or should I just wait here and freeze?" Something shifted in his expression, the amusement fading into something more serious. He glanced over his shoulder toward the direction she'd come from, then back at her. "How much trouble are you in?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. She could lie again, but those blue-gray eyes seemed to see right through her. And if Beaumont's men caught up, having another gun might be the only thing that saved her life. "More than you want to know about," she admitted quietly. Wyatt studied her for another long moment, then nodded as if he'd made a decision. He waded into the creek without hesitation, boots and all. The cold water didn't seem to bother him as he reached her side. "Give me your hands." Catherine hesitated only a second before gripping his outstretched hands. His palms were calloused and warm, his grip strong as he braced himself and pulled. The mud released her with a sucking sound, and she stumbled forward against his chest. He caught her easily, steadying her with one arm around her waist. They stood there for a moment, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his blue-gray eyes and smell leather and sage on his skin. Her hands were pressed flat against his chest, and she could feel his heart beating steady and strong beneath the damp fabric of his shirt. "You good?" His voice had gone lower, almost gentle. She nodded and stepped back quickly, suddenly aware of how she must look, covered in mud and dripping wet. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Wyatt waded to the bank and offered his hand again to help her up. "Those riders I heard about 5 minutes back? They looking for you?" Catherine's stomach dropped. "How many?" "4, maybe 5, spread out like they're hunting something." His eyes narrowed. "Or someone." She had minutes at best. Her horse was gone, her gold was somewhere on the creek bank, and she was soaked through. Catherine looked at Wyatt Coleman, this stranger who just pulled her from the mud, and made a choice that would change everything. "They'll kill me if they catch me. And probably you too, if you're with me." "That so?" Wyatt walked calmly to where her saddlebag had fallen, hefted it like he was testing the weight, then slung it over his shoulder. He whistled softly, and his black stallion trotted over. "Then I reckon we better not let them catch us. Why would you help me? You don't even know me." He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Sadness, maybe, or recognition. "I know what it's like to run from something you can't face alone. I know what it's like to need help and have nobody offer it." He swung up into the saddle, then reached down. "And I know a woman in trouble when I see one." Catherine heard shouts in the distance, getting closer. She grabbed his hand and let him pull her up behind him. Her arms went around his waist automatically as he spurred the stallion forward, and they exploded out of the creek bed at a gallop. The desert opened before them, red rock formations rising against a spring sky heavy with rain clouds. Wyatt rode like he was born on horseback, guiding them through arroyos and around boulders, with the easy confidence of someone who knew this land like his own skin. Catherine held on tight, her wet dress plastered to her back in the wind, her heart racing from more than just fear. She'd spent 6 months alone on her ranch, grieving Thomas, trying to figure out how to survive. She taught herself to be hard, to trust no one, to expect nothing from anyone. And then this man had laughed at her in a mud puddle and decided to risk his life for a stranger. Behind them, the shouts grew fainter. Wyatt didn't slow down until they'd put at least 2 miles between them and the creek. Finally, he reined in beneath an overhang of red rock that formed a shallow cave, hidden from view unless you knew exactly where to look. He dismounted and helped her down, his hands steady on her waist. Catherine's legs were shaking, though whether from cold or adrenaline she couldn't say. "We'll wait here until dark," Wyatt said, already unsaddling his horse. "They won't track us in the dark, and by morning we can figure out where you need to go." Catherine wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that she was freezing in her wet clothes. The spring desert got cold fast once the sun went down. "I don't have anywhere to go. My ranch is the first place they'll look. Then you'll come to mine." He said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. You can't just take in a stranger you pulled from a creek. Wyatt looked at her, and for the first time, she saw shadows in his eyes that matched her own. 6 months ago, I buried my wife and daughter. Fever took them both in the same week. I spent those months wishing I could have saved them, wishing I could go back and do things different. He pulled a blanket from his saddlebag and held it out. So when I see someone who needs help, I help. Simple as that. Catherine took the blanket with trembling hands, her throat tight. "I'm sorry. About your family." "Me too." He turned to tend his horse, giving her privacy to strip off her wet outer layers and wrap herself in the blanket. "Now, you want to tell me what's in that bag that's worth dying for?" She should lie, should make up something safe. But Wyatt Coleman had just told her his worst grief, and somehow that made her own losses feel less alone. Catherine pulled the blanket tighter and made another choice. Gold. About $10,000 worth, hidden in my late husband's study. I found it 3 days ago. She watched his face, waiting for greed to appear. It didn't. "My husband worked for Hiram Beaumont, the man who owns the saloon in town. I think Thomas was involved in something he shouldn't have been, and I think that's why he died. They said it was an accident, a horse throwing him, but now I'm not so sure." Wyatt's jaw tightened. "Beaumont. He's been buying up land around here, running folks off who won't sell. Some say he's got the sheriff in his pocket. He wants my ranch. Made me an offer last month for half what it's worth. When I refused, he said I'd regret it." Catherine's hands fisted in the blanket. "I think he knows about the gold. I think his men have been watching my place. So I took it and ran. Running won't solve this. Neither will staying and getting killed." Wyatt was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the desert turning orange in the fading light. "My wife used to say I had a fool's sense of honor, that I'd help a rattlesnake if it looked at me sad enough." He turned to face her. "I got a foreman and 3 ranch hands at my place. Good men. All of them. We can keep you safe while we figure out what to do about Beaumont." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you risk everything for someone you just met?" He moved closer. Close enough that she could see the pain lingering in his eyes. The same pain she saw in her own reflection every morning. "Because 6 months alone in that empty house taught me something. Grief makes you small. Makes you think nothing matters, because the thing that mattered most is gone. But I'm tired of being small, Catherine. I'm tired of letting fear decide what I do." She understood. God help her, she understood completely. Since Thomas died, she'd been surviving, not living, going through motions, waiting for something to give her a reason to care again. Maybe this was it. This stranger, with sad eyes and a fool's sense of honor. "All right," Catherine whispered. "All right." They waited until full dark before moving again. Wyatt shared his canteen and some dried beef from his saddlebag, neither of them talking much. Catherine was grateful for the silence. It gave her time to think, to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. When stars began appearing overhead, Wyatt saddled his horse again. "We'll take it slow. My ranch is about 8 miles south. We should make it by midnight if we're careful." Catherine climbed up behind him again, the gold-heavy saddlebag secured behind the saddle. Her dress had dried stiff and uncomfortable, but the blanket helped against the cold desert night. She wrapped her arms around Wyatt's waist, feeling the solid warmth of him, and wondered what she was getting them both into. The ride was long and tense. Every sound made her jump, expecting Beaumont's men to appear from the darkness. But Wyatt seemed calm, guiding them through terrain he clearly knew by heart. Once, he stopped and made them wait in silence for 10 minutes, while riders passed on a distant ridge. Catherine pressed her face against his back, breathing in the scent of him, letting his steadiness ground her fear. The Double C Ranch appeared like a miracle in the darkness. A sturdy two-story house with a wide covered porch, a large barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Lamplight glowed in the bunkhouse windows. It looked solid and real, a place built to last. A man emerged from the barn as they rode up, rifle in hand. He lowered it when he recognized Wyatt. "Boss? Wasn't expecting you back tonight?" "Change of plans, Tom." Wyatt dismounted and helped Catherine down, his hands lingering on her waist just a moment longer than necessary. "This is Catherine Sinclair. She'll be staying with us for a while. She's in some trouble, and we're going to help her." Tom was in his 50s, weathered and capable looking. His eyes swept over Catherine, taking in her muddy dress and exhausted face, then nodded. "Ma'am, whatever you need." "Tom's my foreman," Wyatt explained. "Been with me since I started this place. I trust him with my life." "Appreciate that, boss." Tom's gaze was steady. "Should I tell the boys to keep watch tonight?" "Double shifts." "And Tom? Anyone comes asking about Mrs. Sinclair, we don't know anything." "Understood." Tom tipped his hat to Catherine. "Welcome to the Double C, ma'am." After Tom headed back to the bunkhouse, Wyatt led Catherine toward the main house. The porch steps creaked under their boots, familiar and homey. He unlocked the door and ushered her inside. The interior was neat, but sparse, a home that hadn't been truly lived in for a while. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall of the main room. Simple furniture, sturdy and well-made. Everything clean but impersonal, like Wyatt had packed away anything that might remind him of what he'd lost. "Kitchen's through there," he said, gesturing. 3 bedrooms upstairs. You can take the one at the end of the hall. It's got a window facing south, catches the morning sun. Catherine set the saddlebag down carefully. "Wyatt, I don't know how to thank you." He was building a fire in the hearth, not looking at her. "Don't need thanks, just need you safe." She watched the firelight begin to catch, watched him work with practiced hands. This man who'd lost everything and still found room to help a stranger. "Why did you really do it? Pull me out of that creek and bring me here?" Wyatt sat back on his heels, staring into the growing flames. "You want the truth? Please. Because when I saw you stuck there, fighting to get free, refusing to give up even though you were scared and alone, I saw something I haven't felt in 6 months. I saw someone who still believed things could get better, someone who hadn't given up." He turned to look at her, and the raw honesty in his eyes made her chest tighten. "And I thought maybe, if I helped you, I could remember what that feels like. Fighting for something. Mattering to someone, even if it's just as the fool who pulled you from the mud." Catherine crossed the room and knelt beside him. The words came without thought. "You matter. What you did today, risking yourself for someone you don't know, that matters more than you could understand." His hand came up, hesitant, and brushed a strand of dried hair from her face. The touch was gentle, questioning. "You're shivering." "I'm all right." "No, you're not. You're exhausted and half frozen, and probably terrified out of your mind." Wyatt stood and offered his hand. "Come on, I'll show you to your room. There's a wash basin and pitcher up there. and I'll bring you some of my wife's old clothes. They might fit." The mention of his wife made Catherine's throat tight. "Wyatt, I don't want to. I mean, if it's too hard..." She'd want them used. She'd want someone to have them. His voice was steady, but she could see the cost of the words. Mary was practical like that. Waste not, want not. She'd be glad you're here. Glad I'm helping. Catherine let him lead her upstairs to a small bedroom that smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. The quilt on the bed was handmade, beautiful in its simplicity. Wyatt brought a nightgown and a dress, setting them on the chair without ceremony. "Sleep as late as you need tomorrow. We'll figure out what comes next after you've rested." He was almost to the door when Catherine called his name. He turned, and she made herself say what needed saying. "My husband died 7 months ago. They said it was an accident, but now I think Beaumont had him killed. Thomas wasn't perfect, got involved in things he shouldn't have, but he didn't deserve to die. And I've been alone since then, trying to be strong, trying to keep the ranch running, trying not to think about how much I miss just having someone to talk to at the end of the day." She wrapped her arms around herself. "So thank you for making me feel like I'm not alone anymore." Wyatt's expression softened. "You're not alone, Catherine. Not as long as you're here." After he left, Catherine washed and changed into the borrowed nightgown. It was soft cotton, worn smooth from use, and somehow that made it easier to wear. She climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around her. Somewhere below, she heard Wyatt moving around, banking the fire, checking locks. The sounds of someone keeping watch. Someone who cared enough to make sure she was safe. For the first time in 7 months, Catherine fell asleep without crying. Catherine woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a confused moment, she thought she was back in her own house, that Thomas was downstairs making breakfast like he used to on Sunday mornings. Then, reality crashed back, and she remembered where she was. She dressed quickly in the borrowed calico dress, simple blue with tiny white flowers. It fit well enough, if a little loose in the waist. When she came downstairs, she found Wyatt at the kitchen table with a pot of coffee and a plate of food. "Morning." He stood when she entered, that old-fashioned courtesy that felt strange and nice. "Hope you're hungry. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage bacon and eggs." Catherine sat and accepted the coffee he poured. The first sip was strong and hot, and exactly what she needed. "You didn't have to do this." "Yeah, I did. You're my guest." He sat across from her, his own plate barely touched. "Tom's got the boys on watch. Nobody came by last night. Far as anyone knows, you vanished into thin air. They'll keep looking. Let them look. They won't find you here." Wyatt's jaw was set with determination. "But we need to talk about what comes next. You can't hide forever, Catherine. Eventually, you'll need to deal with Beaumont." She pushed eggs around her plate. "I know. I just don't know how. He owns the sheriff, probably half the town. If I accuse him of anything, it's my word against his." "What about the gold? Where did your husband get it?" "I don't know. I found it in a strongbox hidden behind a loose board in his study. There was a ledger with it, dates and amounts, but no names, just initials." Catherine met his eyes. I think Thomas was helping Beaumont move stolen money. Maybe from stage robberies or land deals gone bad, but I can't prove it. End quote. Wyatt leaned back in his chair, thinking. $10,000 is serious money. Beaumont's going to want it back. And he's going to want to make sure nobody talks about where it came from. Which means I'm a problem he needs to eliminate. Not if we eliminate him first. Catherine's heart skipped. What do you mean? I mean we find proof of what he's been doing. Real proof. Enough to bring in federal marshals. Arizona's still a territory, which means crimes like murder and robbery cross federal lines. Get enough evidence, and it doesn't matter who Beaumont owns locally. It was bold. Dangerous. But it was also the first real plan anyone had offered her. How do we get proof? We start by figuring out what your husband was doing for him. That ledger you mentioned, you still have it? Catherine nodded. In the saddlebag with the gold. Then we start there. We go through those dates, try to match them to stagecoach robberies or land deals. Build a case, piece by piece. Wyatt's eyes were intense. It won't be fast, and it won't be easy, but it's better than running. And if Beaumont figures out where I am, then he'll have to come through me and my men to get to you. And I promise you, Catherine, that's not going to happen. The certainty in his voice made something warm uncurl in her chest. She'd been alone for so long, carrying everything by herself. The relief of sharing the burden with someone strong enough to help was almost overwhelming. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Really?" Wyatt was quiet for a moment, staring at his coffee. "Mary, my wife. She was the best person I ever knew. Kind to everyone, never turned away someone in need. After she died, I kept thinking about all the times she'd helped people, all the good she did in this world. And I wondered what I'd done, what mark I'd leave." He looked up at her. "This, helping you, it feels like something she would have wanted me to do. Like maybe it's a way of honoring her memory." Catherine reached across the table and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and rough. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." They sat like that for a moment. Hands joined across the table. Two people who understood loss, finding something unexpected in each other. Then, Tom knocked on the door, and the moment broke. "Boss? Got a rider coming up from the south." Wyatt was on his feet instantly, his hand going to the gun at his hip. "Just one?" "Yeah." "Looks like he's alone." Catherine's stomach clenched. "Beaumont's men?" "Stay here." Wyatt headed for the door. "Tom, get the boys ready, but don't show yourselves unless I give the signal." Catherine ignored his order and followed him onto the porch, staying behind him. Her heart hammered as a single rider came into view, moving at an easy trot. As he got closer, she relaxed slightly. Not Beaumont's men, just a local rancher she recognized from town. "That's Bill Henderson," she said. "He runs cattle west of here." Wyatt's posture eased, but didn't relax completely. "Bill, what brings you out this way?" Henderson reined in at the porch, tipping his hat. "Wyatt." "Ma'am." He nodded to Catherine, surprise flickering across his weathered face. "Didn't expect to find Mrs. Sinclair here." "She's my guest," Wyatt said evenly. "Something we can help you with?" "Actually, I came to warn you. Beaumont's men have been riding through everyone's property, saying they're looking for a thief. They came by my place yesterday, tore through my barn like they owned it. Henderson's eyes hardened. I don't like that man or his gang. Figured I'd let folks know to be careful. Appreciate the warning, Wyatt said. They say what was stolen? Money. Claimed someone broke into Beaumont's office and took a strongbox. Henderson glanced at Catherine, speculation in his eyes. Funny thing is, they're specifically looking for a woman riding alone. Catherine felt her face heat, but Wyatt's voice stayed calm. Well, Mrs. Sinclair's been here since yesterday, helping me sort through some of Mary's things. We're friends from town, and she kindly agreed to help me pack up what should be donated. It was a smooth lie, delivered with just enough casual honesty to be believable. Henderson studied them both, then nodded slowly. I see. Well, if Beaumont's men come around asking, I'll be sure to tell them I didn't see anyone. Obliged, Bill. After Henderson rode off, Wyatt turned to Catherine. That's going to get around. People will talk about you being here. I know. Your reputation. I don't give a damn about my reputation. His voice was firm. But yours matters. If people think there's something improper between us, it could hurt you later. Catherine straightened her shoulders. Right now, staying alive matters more than gossip. Let them talk. Something flashed in Wyatt's eyes. Respect, maybe, or admiration. All right then, let's get to work on that ledger. The sooner we build a case against Beaumont, the sooner this is over. They spent the rest of the morning in Wyatt's study, a small room lined with books and maps. Catherine spread out Thomas's ledger, and they began the painstaking work of matching dates and amounts to news reports of robberies Wyatt had kept. It was slow work, made slower by how aware Catherine was of Wyatt's presence beside her. He'd rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing strong forearms, dusted with golden hair. When he leaned over to point at something in the ledger, she caught the scent of soap and leather. Once, their hands brushed, reaching for the same paper, and the contact sent a spark up her arm that had nothing to do with fear. Here, Wyatt said, tapping an entry. April 10th, 1864. $5,000. Remember that stagecoach that was robbed last year? The one carrying payroll for the silver mine? Catherine checked her memory. They never caught who did it. No, but the amount matches. And look, 2 weeks later, there's a withdrawal of $500. Regular payments after that, same amount, like someone was getting paid off. The sheriff? Catherine felt her pulse quicken. Beaumont was paying the sheriff to look the other way? That'd be my guess. Wyatt made a note. This is good, Catherine. This is evidence. They worked through lunch, Tom bringing them sandwiches they ate without stopping. By late afternoon, they'd identified 6 major crimes that matched entries in Thomas's ledger. It wasn't proof yet, but it was a pattern. A clear trail of stolen money flowing through Beaumont's operation. We need someone official to look at this, Catherine said, rubbing hurted eyes. Someone who can't be bought. Federal marshal out of Santa Fe. His name's Jacob Reese. Served with me during the war. Good man. Honest. Wyatt leaned back in his chair. But getting this to him means a 3-day ride. And leaving you here alone while Beaumont's men are hunting. You can't put your life on hold for me. I'm not putting anything on hold. His voice was quiet, but intense. I'm finally doing something that matters again. Before Catherine could respond, shouting erupted from outside. They both jumped to their feet, Wyatt grabbing his rifle as they rushed to the window. 3 riders were at the property line, staying just far enough back to avoid trespassing. She recognized 2 of them from town, known associates of Beaumont. Tom and the ranch hands had positioned themselves strategically, rifles ready, but not aimed. A standoff. "Stay here," Wyatt ordered, already moving toward the door. Not a chance. Catherine followed him onto the porch, chin high despite the fear coursing through her. The lead rider was a man called Sutton, mean-eyed and quick-tempered. He called out, "We're looking for Catherine Sinclair. Got information she's on your property, Coleman. And if she is, that's her business. And mine." Wyatt replied evenly. "You're on my land uninvited. I suggest you leave. Beaumont wants his property back. The woman stole from him. That's a serious accusation. You got proof? A warrant from the sheriff?" Sutton's face darkened. "Don't need a warrant for a thief." "Actually, you do. Last I checked, Arizona territory still has laws." Wyatt's voice hardened. "So, unless you have legal authority, you're trespassing. And I protect what's mine." The implication was clear. Catherine felt her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name. He'd just claimed her as under his protection, publicly and without hesitation. "Beaumont ain't going to like this," Sutton warned. "Then Beaumont can come talk to me himself. Man to man." Wyatt stepped forward, rifle held loosely but ready. But his hired guns aren't welcome here. Not now, not ever. For a long moment, the tension hung knife-sharp in the desert air. Then Sutton spat in the dirt and wheeled his horse around. "You're making a mistake, Coleman. Big one." They rode off, but Catherine knew it wasn't over. She turned to Wyatt, words tumbling out. "You shouldn't have done that. Now he'll come after you too." "Good. Let him try." Wyatt's jaw was set. "I'm tired of men like Beaumont thinking they can terrorize decent people. You could die. We all die eventually. Question is whether we do it standing up or on our knees." He looked at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. "I'm done being on my knees, Catherine." That night, Catherine couldn't sleep. She stood at her bedroom window, watching moonlight paint the desert silver, thinking about Wyatt downstairs keeping watch, thinking about how her presence had put him in danger, thinking about the way her heart had jumped when he'd called her his to protect. She'd loved Thomas. She had. But it had been a comfortable love, built on companionship and shared goals. Nothing like the fierce pull she felt toward the man who'd pulled her from that creek. Nothing like the way her skin felt too tight when Wyatt was near, or how she found herself watching his hands move, wondering what they'd feel like in her hair. It was too soon. Thomas had only been gone 7 months. Decent women didn't move on so fast. But then, she'd never been very good at being what people expected. A soft knock on her door made her turn. "Catherine? You awake?" She opened the door to find Wyatt still fully dressed, rifle in hand. "Can't sleep either?" Thinking too much, he hesitated. "I was making coffee. Thought you might want some." They sat at the kitchen table like they had that morning. But the easy companionship felt charged now, loaded with words unspoken, and feelings neither quite knew how to name. "Tell me about her." Catherine said finally. Your wife. Wyatt's hands tightened on his cup. Why? Because she's part of you. Because I want to understand who you are. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Mary was sunshine. She lit up every room she walked into, made everyone feel special. We met at a church social, married a month later. Everyone said we were rushing, but we knew. His voice went rough. She was pregnant when the fever hit, 8 months along. We were going to name the baby Sarah. Catherine's throat ached. Wyatt, I'm so sorry. I held them both while they died. Mary first, then the baby 3 hours later. I buried them together in the plot on the ridge overlooking the valley. He looked at her with eyes full of old pain. For months after, I couldn't figure out why I was still here, why I survived when they didn't. Did you find an answer? Not until yesterday. Not until I pulled a stubborn woman out of a creek and remembered what it felt like to have purpose. His gaze held hers. You make me want to fight again, Catherine. Want to build something instead of just surviving. Her hand found his across the table. I feel like I've been holding my breath for 7 months, going through motions, pretending to be fine when I was drowning. She squeezed his fingers. You make me want to breathe again. Catherine. Her name was almost a prayer on his lips. I don't want to dishonor what we've lost. Mary and Thomas, they deserve better than us forgetting them. Loving again isn't forgetting. It's honoring what they taught us about love. She stood, drawing him up with her. Mary would want you happy. Thomas, for all his faults, would want me safe. And right now, being here with you, it's the first time in forever I've felt both. Wyatt's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. This is moving fast. We don't have time for slow. Beaumont could attack tomorrow. Or the law could come for me. Or 100 other things could go wrong. Catherine leaned into his touch. I'm tired of waiting for someday, Wyatt. I want now. He bent his head slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met soft and questioning. A first kiss that tasted like coffee and new beginnings. His arms came around her waist, hers around his neck, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them, safe in this kitchen, while danger waited outside. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt pressed his forehead to hers. We'll get through this. All of it. Together. Promise? She lead nor they're supposed bitch me, one struss, to clist around her. Being strussed to window whether or not her handset. Their rust place where lost allows white, and towel lap ticed. Cone like granding it and shout at that thing. Brullet hall my his dumb, I call the coin protect most booze. Promise. The next 3 days fell into a pattern. Wyatt and Tom took turns riding to neighboring ranches, quietly asking questions about Beaumont's land deals and business operations. Catherine worked through the ledger, finding more connections, more proof. At night, she and Wyatt sat together on the porch, talking about everything and nothing, learning each other. She discovered he'd wanted to be a teacher before the war, that he read poetry when he couldn't sleep, that he'd built most of this ranch with his own hands, board by board. He learned she'd been a Harvey girl before marrying Thomas, serving meals at railroad stops, that she missed singing, something she'd given up when Thomas said it wasn't proper. That Her real dream had been to own a restaurant someday. Serve food that made people feel at home. "You should do it," Wyatt said one evening, stars wheeling overhead. "After this is over, open that restaurant." "With what money? Even if we survive Beaumont, I'll have nothing." "You'll have the gold. It's yours now." Catherine shook her head. "It's blood money, stolen from good people. I can't keep it." "Then we'll find who it belongs to and return it. And I'll help you start fresh." He took her hand. "I got some savings. Mary had life insurance money I haven't touched. We could be partners. You run the restaurant, I'll work the ranch. Together." It was a future. A real future, not just survival. The offer made her eyes sting. "You don't have to do that." "I know. I want to." He turned to face her fully. "Catherine, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I feel more alive with you than I have in a year. That means something." "It does." She swallowed hard. "But we have to survive first." "We will." On the fourth day, Tom rode in with news. Jake Fletcher came by. Said Beaumont's been in a rage, tearing up his saloon, threatening anyone he thinks might know where you are. Word is, he's planning something big. Wyatt's face went hard. "How big?" Jake heard him tell his men to gather tonight. All of them. Sounded like they're planning to hit the ranch. Catherine felt ice slide down her spine. "How many men does he have?" "Maybe 15. 20 if he pulls in everyone." Tom looked grim. "We got 4, including you, boss. Those ain't good odds." "Then we even them." Wyatt stood, already planning. "Tom, I want you to ride to the Ferguson place. Ask if Frank and his boys will come help defend the ranch. Tell him everything. Tell him we got evidence against Beaumont. Ferguson's been wanting to push back for months. What about the law? Send word to the marshal in Santa Fe. Tell him we need federal help, but he won't get here in time for tonight." Wyatt turned to Catherine. "You need to take that ledger and gold and hide. There's a line shack about 5 miles north, built into the rocks. Nobody knows about it but me and Tom. I'm not leaving you to fight alone. Catherine, you have to. If Beaumont gets you, none of this matters. And if he kills you, I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I'd stayed and fought." She grabbed his hands. "I can shoot. My father taught me. I'm not helpless. I know you're not. But I need you safe. Please." The please broke her. Catherine nodded, throat tight. "All right. But you come get me when it's over. You hear me? You come get me, or I'm coming to find you." His smile was sad and fierce. "Deal." Tom left to gather help while Wyatt prepared the ranch for siege. They fortified the house, positioned rifles at windows, filled buckets with water in case of fire. Catherine packed the ledger and gold in saddlebags, while Wyatt saddled a gentle mare for her. As the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and red, Wyatt walked her to the horse. His hands lingered on her waist as he helped her mount, his eyes searching her face like he was memorizing it. "I'll come back," he said. "I promise you, Catherine, I'll come back." She leaned down and kissed him, fierce and desperate. "You better. Because I'm falling in love with you, Wyatt Coleman. And I don't intend to lose you now." His sharp intake of breath was answer enough. Go. Now. Before I lose my nerve and keep you here." Catherine rode north as twilight fell, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, she heard men arriving, voices calling out as Ferguson and his sons joined Wyatt's defense. Ahead, the desert stretched dark and dangerous. She found the line shack just as full darkness fell, a small structure built into a cliff face, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. Catherine led the mare inside the small corral, unsaddled her, and barricaded herself in the shack with the gold and the rifle Wyatt had insisted she take. Then she sat in the darkness and prayed. Prayed for Wyatt's safety, for Tom and the other men. Prayed that this wouldn't be another loss. Another person she cared about torn away just when she'd found hope again. Hours crawled past. She heard nothing but wind and coyotes. Maybe Beaumont hadn't come. Maybe Tom's information was wrong. Then, faint in the distance, gunfire erupted. Catherine's heart stopped. The battle had begun. Catherine counted each gunshot, each shout that carried on the night wind. The battle seemed to last forever, and no time at all. She clutched the rifle, every muscle tense, imagining Wyatt behind cover, rifle raised, fighting for his life. Fighting for her. Please let him be safe. Please let him survive this. Gradually, the gunfire slowed, stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Catherine stood frozen, straining to hear anything that would tell her who'd won, who'd survived. Then hoofbeats, coming fast from the direction of the ranch. One rider. She raised the rifle, positioning herself where she could see out the door. If it was Beaumont's men, she'd fight. She wouldn't make it easy. The rider came into view in the moonlight, and Catherine's heart nearly burst from her chest. Wyatt. Alive. She threw open the door and ran out as he dismounted. He caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. She didn't care. He was warm and solid and alive. "You're okay," she gasped against his neck. "You're okay. We won." His voice was hoarse. "Ferguson and his boys, they came through. We held them off, captured 5 of Beaumont's men. The rest ran." He pulled back to look at her face, his hands framing her cheeks. Beaumont wasn't with them. He sent his men, but stayed safe in town. Coward. "Did anyone on our side get hurt?" Tom took a graze on his arm, nothing serious. One of Ferguson's sons twisted his ankle jumping off a porch. "We were lucky, Catherine. So damn lucky." She kissed him then, fierce and grateful, pouring everything she felt into it. He kissed her back, like a man starving, like she was air and water and everything good in the world. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers. "I love you. I need you to know that. I love you, and I'm not letting you go. I love you too. So much it scares me. Don't be scared. Not anymore." He kissed her again, softer this time. "We're going to finish this. Tomorrow, I'm riding to Santa Fe with that ledger. I'm going to put Beaumont away for good. And then I'm coming back. And we're going to build that life we talked about. Together." Catherine nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. After so many months of darkness, of grief and fear and loneliness, she'd found light again. Found love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected man. They rode back to the ranch together through the moonlit desert, Catherine seated in front of Wyatt, his arms around her, both of them whole and safe. The ranch house was battered but standing, windows broken but walls solid. Tom and the others were cleaning up, tending minor wounds, looking tired but victorious. "Boss," Tom grinned when they rode up. "Got something you need to see." He led them to the barn where 5 of Beaumont's men sat tied up, looking sullen and defeated. But that wasn't what made Catherine's breath catch. It was the man standing guard over them. The federal marshal. He'd arrived after all. Marshal Reese. Wyatt shook the man's hand. "Didn't expect you so soon. Got your message this morning. Rode hard when I heard what was happening." Reese was a tall man in his 40s, weathered and capable. His eyes moved to Catherine. "You must be Mrs. Sinclair. I understand you have some information about Hiram Beaumont's operations." Catherine fetched the ledger and spent the next hour explaining everything. Reese asked sharp questions, taking notes, his expression growing grimmer. When she finished, he sat back with a low whistle. "This is enough. More than enough. We'll arrest Beaumont at first light, seize his saloon, go through his records. With what you've given me and these men's testimony, once they realize they're facing federal prison, we'll put him away for 20 years minimum." Relief crashed over Catherine so hard her knees weakened. Wyatt's arm came around her waist, steadying her. "It's over," he murmured. "It's really over." That night, after the marshal and his deputies settled in the bunkhouse and everyone else found places to sleep, Catherine and Wyatt sat on the porch one more time. The stars wheeled overhead, bright and eternal, witness to everything they'd survived. "What happens now?" Catherine asked, her head on his shoulder. "Now we rest. Then tomorrow, we watch them arrest Beaumont." After that, Wyatt took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I was thinking maybe you could stay here, at the ranch. Not as a guest, as family." Catherine's heart began to pound. "Wyatt, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a week. But that week showed me more about who you are than some people show in years." He shifted to face her fully. "You're strong and brave and kind. You don't give up. You fight for what matters, and you make me want to be better, do better, live better. You do the same for me. Then stay. Help me build something here. Not just a ranch, but a home. A real home, full of life and laughter and all the things we lost." His eyes were intense in the moonlight. "Stay with me, Catherine. Choose me like I'm choosing you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes. Yes. I'll stay. I choose you, Wyatt. I choose us." He kissed her then, sweet and sure, a promise sealed under the desert stars. When they finally pulled apart, both smiling, Catherine felt something shift in her chest. The grief that had weighted her down for 7 months began to lift, making room for something new. Hope. Joy. Love. "We'll do it right," Wyatt said. "Court you properly. Give the town time to accept it. Marry you in the church like you deserve. I don't need proper. I just need you. You'll get both." His smile was pure happiness. "Everything, Catherine. I want to give you everything." The next morning dawned clear and bright, full of promise. Marshal Reese and his deputies rode into town just after sunrise. Wyatt, Catherine, Tom, and several others followed, wanting to see justice done. They found Beaumont in his saloon, just opening for the day. The look on his face when the marshal walked in with arrest papers was something Catherine would remember forever. Shock, fury, and finally fear as he realized his empire was crumbling. "Hiram Beaumont, you're under arrest for robbery, murder, and conspiracy," Reese announced. "We've got testimony, records, and enough evidence to put you away for the rest of your natural life." Beaumont's eyes found Catherine in the doorway. "You bitch. You've ruined everything." "No," Catherine said calmly. "You ruined everything the moment you decided other people's lives didn't matter. I just made sure you paid for it." As the deputies led Beaumont away in chains, Catherine felt Wyatt's hand find hers. She squeezed back, drawing strength from his presence. The whole town had come out to watch, whispers running through the crowd. Bill Henderson stepped forward, hat in hand. "Mrs. Sinclair, Mr. Coleman, want you both to know, a lot of us are grateful. Beaumont's been terrorizing folks for years. You did what needed doing." Others echoed the sentiment, coming up to shake their hands, offer thanks. By the time they left town, Catherine's face hurt from smiling. This was acceptance. This was community. This was home. Over the next 2 weeks, things settled. The marshal's investigation uncovered even more crimes, implicating the corrupt sheriff who resigned in disgrace. Catherine worked with Reese to identify victims of Beaumont's robberies, returning what money could be traced. The rest, nearly $6,000, went into a fund for families Beaumont had ruined. Catherine's ranch, which she'd expected to lose, remained hers, but she didn't return to it. Instead, she spent her days at the Double C, working alongside Wyatt to repair damage from the attack and plan improvements. They fell into an easy partnership, each contributing skills, each supporting the other. Ferguson and the other neighbors became regular visitors, grateful for what Wyatt and Catherine had done. The community that had fractured under Beaumont's influence began to heal, coming together for barn raisings and church socials. Catherine found herself welcomed, accepted not just as the woman who'd brought down a criminal, but as Wyatt's chosen partner. 3 weeks after that first chase through the desert, Wyatt found Catherine in the ranch house kitchen. She was attempting to bake bread, flour dusting her nose, looking frustrated and adorable. "It keeps falling," she complained. "Mary's recipe is perfect, but somehow mine collapses." Wyatt grinned and came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Maybe because you keep forgetting to let it rise long enough. I'm impatient. I've noticed." He kissed her neck, feeling her shiver. "Come with me. I want to show you something." He led her outside and up the ridge behind the ranch. At the top, where the land fell away to show miles of desert and sky, stood a simple wooden cross and 2 small headstones. Mary and Sarah Coleman. Catherine's breath caught. "Wyatt, I came up here every day for months," he said quietly. "Talked to them, told them about my day, asked for guidance. Today, I wanted to talk to them about you. You don't have to." "I do. Mary was my wife," She deserves to know. Wyatt took Catherine's hand. I told them about you. About how you're brave and strong and kind. About how you make me laugh again. About how I'm planning to ask you to marry me. If you'll have me. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. You think Mary would approve? I think Mary would love you. She'd see what I see, that you're someone worth building a life with. He turned to face her fully. I'm not asking you to replace her. Nobody could. But you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A future. A reason to wake up every morning with hope instead of dread. She was lucky to have you, and I'm lucky too. Catherine looked at the graves, then back at Wyatt. I'd be honored to marry you, to be your wife, your partner, your family. His kiss tasted like salt from her tears and his. They stood there a long time, holding each other while the desert wind sang around them. When they finally headed back down the ridge, Catherine felt at peace. The past would always be part of them, but it no longer defined them. They were building something new, something strong enough to last. The following Sunday, Wyatt took Catherine to church in town. It was a statement, walking in together, sitting side by side in the pew. The whole congregation watched, whispers running like wildfire. But Wyatt kept his head high, his hand over Catherine's where it rested on his arm. After the service, the preacher pulled them aside. Reverend Matthews was an older man, kind-eyed and practical. Wyatt, Catherine, good to see you both. Reverend, Wyatt said, we wanted to talk to you about something. Catherine and we'd like you to marry us. Matthews smiled. I'd be honored. When were you thinking? Soon. We don't need anything fancy. Just family and friends. Simple ceremony. Sometimes simple is best. The Reverend looked between them. You've both known loss. You both understand what marriage means. I think you'll do well together. They set a date for 4 weeks out, giving time for Catherine to prepare and for the community to accept the news. Mrs. Patterson, the church organist who'd befriended Catherine, helped her alter one of Mary's nicer dresses into something suitable for a wedding. Other women contributed flowers, food for a small reception, small kindnesses that meant everything. Catherine wrote to her sister back east, telling her about Wyatt, about the wedding, about finally finding happiness again. The letter she received back was full of joy and relief. Her family had worried about her, alone on that ranch, grieving Thomas. Now they could rest easy, knowing she'd found someone good. Tom and the ranch hands threw Wyatt a small party the night before the wedding. Cigars and whiskey and ribbing about married life. Catherine spent the evening with Mrs. Patterson and several other women, listening to advice both practical and absurd, laughing until her sides hurt. The wedding day dawned perfect. Clear sky, mild temperature, desert wildflowers blooming everywhere. Catherine dressed in the altered gown, simple cream cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Mrs. Patterson helped arrange her hair, weaving in tiny yellow flowers. You look beautiful, dear, the older woman said, squeezing her shoulders. Wyatt's a lucky man. I'm the lucky one. The ceremony was held at the church, packed with neighbors and friends. Tom stood up with Wyatt, looking proud in his best suit. Bill Henderson walked Catherine down the aisle, since she had no family nearby, tears in his eyes like she was his own daughter. And Wyatt, standing at the altar in a black suit Catherine had never seen him wear, looking handsome and nervous and so full of love, it took her breath away. Reverend Matthews kept the service simple and heartfelt. When it came time for vows, Wyatt took Catherine's hands and spoke from his heart. "Catherine, you brought me back to life when I thought I was done living. You gave me hope, gave me purpose, gave me a reason to be better. I promise to love you, protect you, stand by you through everything life brings. I promise to build you that restaurant you dream about. I promise to make you laugh every day, even when times are hard. And I promise to never take for granted what we have, because I know how precious it is." Catherine's voice shook as she responded. "Wyatt, you saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me it was okay to trust again, to love again, to hope again. I promise to be your partner in all things, your support and your strength. I promise to fight beside you, build beside you, dream beside you, and I promise to love you every single day, with everything I have, for the rest of our lives." End quote. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Wyatt, you may kiss your bride." He did, thoroughly and without shame, right there in front of everyone. The church erupted in applause and cheers. Catherine laughed against his mouth, joy bubbling up like champagne. They walked out of that church hand in hand, into bright Arizona sunshine, into their new life together. The reception was held at the Ferguson Ranch, tables set up under cottonwood trees, food and music and dancing. Catherine found herself passed from partner to partner, each neighbor welcoming her officially into the community. But her eyes kept finding Wyatt, watching him laugh with Tom and the others, looking more relaxed and happy than she'd ever seen him. Finally, as the sun began to set, he claimed her for a slow dance. His arms came around her waist, hers around his neck, and they swayed together while someone played a fiddle and the desert painted itself gold and pink. "Happy?" he murmured. "So happy. You? More than I ever thought I'd be again." He kissed her forehead. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Coleman?" The name sent warmth through her chest. Mrs. Coleman, his wife. "Yes. Let's go home." They said their goodbyes and rode back to the Double C as twilight fell. The ranch looked beautiful in the fading light, solid and welcoming. Home. Wyatt dismounted and came around to help Catherine down. But instead of setting her on her feet, he lifted her in his arms, carrying her toward the house. "Wyatt, what are you—" "Tradition," he said, grinning. "Carrying my bride over the threshold." He kicked the door open and carried her inside, setting her down gently in the main room. The house was quiet, lit only by the banked fire in the hearth. Tom and the others had made themselves scarce, giving the newlyweds privacy. Catherine looked around at the home that was now hers too, at the furniture Wyatt had built, the books on the shelves, the warmth that had been missing when she first arrived. "We should make new memories here. Fill this house with life again." "We will." Wyatt came up behind her, hands on her waist, lips against her neck. "Starting tonight." She turned in his arms, seeing desire and love and tenderness in his eyes. "I love you, Wyatt Coleman. I love you, Catherine Coleman." He kissed her, slow and deep, a promise of what was to come. "Let me show you just how much." He lifted her in his arms again, carrying her toward the stairs. Catherine clung to him, heart racing with anticipation and joy and love so fierce It felt like it might burst from her chest. This was their beginning. Their chance to build something beautiful from the ashes of loss. And Catherine knew, with absolute certainty, that together they could face anything. They woke the next morning tangled together in his bed. Now their bed, sunlight streaming through the window. Catherine had never felt so content, so completely at peace. Wyatt's arms were wrapped around her, his chest rising and falling steadily beneath her cheek. "Morning, wife," he murmured, voice still rough with sleep. "Morning, husband." She smiled against his skin. "I could get used to this." "Good. Because I plan on waking up with you every day for the rest of my life." They stayed in bed a while longer, talking softly about their plans. The ranch needed work before winter came. Catherine wanted to start planning her restaurant, maybe in town where it could serve travelers and locals alike. They discussed building an addition to the house, maybe a proper kitchen and dining room where they could host dinners for friends. Finally, hunger drove them downstairs. Wyatt made coffee while Catherine attempted breakfast, both of them moving around each other with easy familiarity. Through the window, they could see Tom and the hands already at work, respectfully giving the main house a wide berth. "I should get out there," Wyatt said. But he didn't move from where he stood behind her, arms around her waist. "In a minute." Catherine leaned back against him. "I just want to enjoy this a little longer. Being your wife, being home. This is home now, for both of us, for as long as we both shall live." A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Tom stood on the porch, hat in hand, looking apologetic. "Sorry to bother you, boss, but there's someone here to see Mrs. Coleman. Says it's important." Catherine's stomach clenched. "What now?" But Wyatt squeezed her hand reassuringly. "We'll handle it together, whatever it is." The visitor turned out to be a lawyer from town, a thin man with spectacles named Morton. He shook their hands nervously. "Mrs. Coleman, Mr. Coleman, congratulations on your marriage." "Thank you," Catherine said warily. "What can we do for you?" "I represent the estate of Thomas Sinclair. There's been a development." Morton pulled papers from his satchel. "Your late husband had a life insurance policy, quite substantial. With everything that happened with Beaumont's arrest, the investigation delayed the payout. But it's been cleared now. $15,000, payable to you as his widow." Catherine's knees went weak. Wyatt's arm came around her waist, holding her steady. "15,000? "Yes, ma'am. Apparently, Mr. Sinclair took out the policy shortly before his death. The company investigated thoroughly, given the circumstances, but they've determined it was legitimate." Morton handed her the papers. "You'll need to sign here and here. The money will be transferred to the bank under your name." After Morton left, Catherine sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers. $15,000. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Money that could change everything. "Thomas must have known," she said quietly. "Known he was in danger. Known something might happen. He took out that policy to protect me." Wyatt sat beside her. "He loved you. Even if he made mistakes. Even if he got involved in things he shouldn't have. He loved you. I can open my restaurant now. A real one. Not just a dream." Catherine looked at him. "And we can expand the ranch, hire more hands, build that addition. We can do everything we talked about." "We can. But Catherine, that's your money. From Thomas. You should do with it whatever feels right to you. She took his hand. What feels right is using it to build our future. Together. Thomas would want that. He'd want me happy and safe. And I am, because of you. Then we'll build that future. Your restaurant in town, bigger ranch here. Maybe even start a family, if you want. The thought made her smile. I want. Someday. When we're ready. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Wyatt pulled her close. Everything's going to be all right now, Catherine. Better than all right. We're going to be happy. And looking into his eyes, seeing the love and certainty there, Catherine believed him. The fear and grief that had haunted her for so long had finally released its grip. In its place was hope, joy, and a love strong enough to weather anything. They spent the rest of the day making plans, dreaming out loud about the restaurant Catherine would open and the life they'd build. That evening, they walked up to the ridge together, hand in hand, to watch the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Thank you, Catherine said softly. For what? For laughing at me when I was stuck in that creek. For pulling me out when you could have just ridden away. For choosing to help a stranger when it would have been easier not to. She turned to face him. For loving me when I'd forgotten how to love myself. Wyatt cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. You gave me back my life, Catherine. You made me remember what it feels like to have purpose, to fight for something that matters, to love again. He kissed her softly. We saved each other. We did, didn't we? They stood there as the sun sank below the horizon. Two people who'd been broken finding wholeness in each other. Behind them, the ranch spread out peaceful and prosperous. Ahead, a future full of possibilities stretched endless as the desert sky. Catherine leaned against her husband's chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong. This was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of pain or loss, but the presence of love powerful enough to build new joy on old foundations. The desert wind sang around them, carrying the scent of sage and possibility. In the distance, a coyote called to the rising stars. And Catherine Coleman smiled, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Two hearts that had learned to beat again, keeping time with each other. Stronger for having been broken and brave enough to heal. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm sweeter than Catherine had imagined possible. She and Wyatt worked side by side each day, rebuilding and improving the ranch. In the evenings, they'd sit on the porch, watching stars emerge while planning Catherine's restaurant. Tom and the Hands became family, joining them for meals, sharing stories around the fire. The community embraced them fully now. No longer two grieving individuals, but a strong married couple building something lasting. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Wyatt pulled Catherine close. You know what I realized today? What's that? I haven't thought about being sad in weeks. Haven't woken up wishing things were different. For the first time since Mary and the baby died, I'm just happy. Completely, honestly happy. Catherine kissed his jaw. Me too. I loved Thomas, and I'll always be grateful for the years we had. But this us, it feels like I finally found where I belong. You belong with me, always. He turned her face to his, eyes serious. I know we said someday about starting a family, but Catherine, I want that with you. Want to fill this house with children and laughter and life. Her heart swelled. I want that too. So much. Then let's not wait. Let's live. Really live. No more holding back. No more fear. Just us. Building the best life we can. Catherine nodded. Tears of joy streaming down her face. Yes. Yes to all of it. They sealed the promise with a kiss as the desert turned to gold around them. Two souls who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, who'd fought through danger and fear to reach this moment of perfect peace. The ranch would thrive. The restaurant would open next spring, becoming the heart of the community Catherine had always dreamed of creating. Children would come, filling the house with noise and joy. Challenges would arise, as they always do. But Catherine and Wyatt would face them together, stronger as a pair than they'd ever been alone. But that was tomorrow. Tonight was for holding each other close, for counting blessings instead of losses, for believing in the future they were building one day at a time. I love you, Wyatt Coleman, Catherine whispered. I love you, Catherine Coleman, he answered. Today, tomorrow, and all the days after that. And in that moment, with twilight painting the sky and her husband's arms around her, Catherine knew with absolute certainty that she'd found what she'd been searching for all along. Not rescue, not safety, not just survival, but home. True home. The kind built on love and trust, and two hearts brave enough to try again.